All right, so this is the tissue unit. There are the objectives for the tissue unit. Look at those. Tissues are groups of cells, similar cell types that join together and they have a specific function. So the specific function could be like your skin has a specific tissue in there called stratified squamous. There are four main types of tissues in our body: epithelial, connective, muscle, and nervous. And really all these combine to form our organs. So within our skin we have many different types of tissues. Start talking about epithelial tissue. Epithelial tissue is used to cover surfaces like our lungs or our bodies. And then they also line our hollow organs and tubes like esophagus, blood vessels, those types of things. Functions of epithelial tissue: first of all, protection. Epithelial tissue protects us by allowing us to not take in too much water, or not to lose too much water. Mechanical protection. And mechanical protection really refers to forces, so mechanical forces. So not getting hit and damaging our skin. This pen's not writing very well. Chemical protection, and chemical protection looks at things like protecting us from very low or different pHs than our homeostatic set point. Secretion: some of our epithelial tissue secretes a mucus, and the mucus really protects us two ways. One, it can help to prevent dehydration, but also mucus can trap foreign particles and not allow them to get into the body. And absorption: we have epithelial tissue where we need to absorb things and filter things. All right, there are three shapes to epithelial tissue and four arrangements. And the shapes are squamous, cuboidal, and columnar. Squamous cells are like flattened cells. They're irregularly shaped, just kind of flattened out. Cuboidal cells are generally cube-shaped, but they're not perfect cubes. We don't have any cells that are a perfect cube, so they don't really look like that. They're more just cube-shaped. So there would be two cuboidal cells. And columnar are generally longer than they are wide. So there's one columnar, maybe there's another one next to it. Four arrangements. Simple arrangement means it's one layer thick. Stratified means more than one layer. Pseudostratified looks like it's one layer, but it really is just one layer thick. So pseudostratified looks like it's one layer, but really is just one layer. Transitional goes from more simple to more stratified, and we'll see what those means. When we name our tissue, we name that by naming the arrangement with the shape. So for example, we can have simple squamous. My pen is not working very well. Okay. Okay, simple squamous. So here's an example of that simple squamous epithelial tissue. And simple squamous epithelial tissue is found, so it's right here, is found where we need to be able to absorb things or to allow things to pass through. So you can see it's one layer thick, so this is one simple squamous cell. Okay. So that's one simple squamous cell. And there's one next to it showing that it's just one layer thick. Okay. So here's another one, and there's another one. So there's 4 simple squamous cells here. This over here is a cartoonist rendition of what it would look like, and this is the actual photomicrograph. So here you're seeing the actual simple squamous cell. Epithelial tissue is attached to a basement membrane, so a kind of connective tissue that binds it to the underlying structures. Okay. We find simple squamous tissue in the air sacs of the lungs, so that things like oxygen and carbon dioxide can pass through. Blood vessels, also nutrients can get in and out, waste products can get in and out, and lining the lymphatic vessels. This is simple cuboidal tissue. Simple cuboidal tissue is one layer thick of these cuboidal cells. Notice that the cuboidal cells are not perfect cubes, they're just generally cube-shaped. Simple cuboidal cells are places we find these where we need a little bit more strength, but also we need to be able to let things in and out. So in the kidney tubules, to allow material to pass through these. On the outside of the ovaries, and some of our glands, the ducts in them are made of simple cuboidal. This is simple columnar, so one layer of columnar cells. Notice these ones are ciliated, so these have these kind of cilia on them. The columnar cells quite often have these goblet cells. Goblet cells secrete mucus. So you have these where you need mucus. So they maybe in the stomach, the intestines, and also lining their uterus. You would have these simple columnar cells. Pseudostratified ciliated columnar cells, they look like they're more than one layer thick, but they're really not, because all of the cells reach the basement membrane. So that's generally what they look like. With the pseudostratified ciliated columnar, a lot of the cells that are on the basement membrane appear to be cuboidal, but you can see that these are all columnar cells. And they're ciliated because they have cilia on them. Goblet cells, again, where we need mucus. And we have a lot of these pseudostratified ciliated columnar in places like the respiratory passages, where we need to produce mucus, but also be able to protect the tissue in there. This is stratified squamous. Notice we still have those flattened cells, those oddly shaped cells, but they're not in one layer. These are many layers. So this is the stratified squamous. Okay, so the outer layer of the skin, the epidermis, is made of pseudostratified I'm sorry, is made of stratified squamous. Also lines cavities where we need protection. So oral cavity, throat, anal canal, and vagina are all places where we need protection, generally because of mechanical forces. This is stratified cuboidal. Stratified cuboidal is really only 2 to 3 layers thick. It's not going to be a bunch, but you can see that these are cuboidal shaped cells that are in 2 or 3 layers. So you got a couple layers right here. We find this in the ducts of the mammary glands, or sweat glands, salivary glands, and the pancreas. Okay, stratified columnar. In the male reproductive system, we have them in the vas deferens, in the urethra, and for everybody, they're a part of our pharynx. Okay, and with these stratified columnar, once again, you have those cells that are closer to the basement membrane that kind of look cuboidal in nature, like these ones. But it is still columnar cells, and there's more than one layer of them. Okay, there's a couple layers of them here. Generally, if you see it looks like this, and there's no cilia, assume it's stratified columnar. If there is cilia, assume it's pseudostratified ciliated columnar. Here are the transitional epithelial tissues, and this one we don't really have a shape name for, because this one goes from these cube-shaped cells to the very elongated cells. And they do this when the tissue stretches. So for example, the urinary bladder, when it's empty, the cells are going to be more compacted. And as it stretches out, they'll be able to elongate. So that allows the bladder to stretch and the tissue in there to stretch. So what kind of tissue is this? Notice the irregular shaped cells. These are simple squamous, and this is taken from above. This is a cross section, and we're looking at these cells right here. These are stratified squamous. Okay, notice these shells, you got these cube shapes right here. Okay. Those are simple cuboidal, probably in the kidney tubule. This one is like simple columnar. And this one is pseudostratified ciliated columnar. Okay. We have glands in the body, and the glands are made up of either cuboidal or columnar epithelial tissue. Exocrine glands secrete products into ducts, so into tubes, that are normally going to leave the body. So sweat glands, salivary glands, the lacrimal apparatus, mammary glands, these are all exocrine glands. Endocrine glands secrete hormones directly into the bloodstream. Okay, so they're not going to secrete generally through a tube, but they are going to secrete into the bloodstream. So the pituitary and the thalamus are 2 good examples of endocrine glands. Sorry, I should say hypothalamus. Okay, we classify our glands by their structural types, the exocrine glands. And for this one, we have the tubular or the alveolar. Tubular, you notice, are just these elongated cells, or these glands that don't really change the shape very much. Whereas the alveolar are kind of bubble shaped in here. And we have these simple ones, so simple tubular, simple branch tubular, coiled tubular, and simple branched alveolar. And then we have the compound alveolar, which is 3 of these simple branched alveolar together. And the compound tubular, same idea. So with the glandular secretions, the glands secrete things based off of, or how the secretion, we break this down based on how they secrete things. So for the Exocrine glands, the secretion just comes out of the cells of the gland. Okay. For the apocrine one, a piece of the cell actually breaks off to deliver the contents for the gland. And this would be like the mammary glands. Okay. And then for holocrine glands, like these sebaceous glands, the cell actually gets destroyed when it releases its material. So the cell has to break apart for the material to leave. Okay. And there's that information.